Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas, on Tuesday, July the 28th, and welcome to our commentary. I don't know what it is about this week, but I think we're having the hottest week of the year, and it seems like every day the high temperature is just 1 degree higher than the day before. 102, 101, 103. I guess we're getting our summer moment here in late July. But as I said before, this happens quite often in July or August. It doesn't always happen in July. Sometimes we get it in August, but it is a hot week to tell you about. I have a post over at the American Thinker today, and it has to do with this thing about land acknowledgement. And once again, we saw something like this. They were opening a bridge between Michigan and Ontario. Great idea. I'm all in favor of bridges. I think they're great. Obviously, in the case of Ontario and Michigan, there's a lot of movement there. There's a lot of commerce. So yeah, a bridge is always a good idea to have. So as they seem to be doing, they did it at President Obama's library. They begin by recognizing that we built this on the land of a nation, normally Native American nations that I guess had that island or that land before. And, they do the recognition, and a lot of people give speeches, get up about it. And this particular time in the Michigan Ontario Bridge, there was a Native American lady who was in the audience. Not exactly sure why she was in the audience, but she was there. And Native American lady, I'm not sure if Canadian or American, but she was there. And then she turned around and she wrote an article, an opinion piece in the New York Times. And the opinion piece was basically, look, stop all of this. Unless you're serious about giving it back, just stop it. Just stop it, please. All this crying about, how we stole that land or that land. She said, just stop it. Unless you're willing to do something about it, unless you're willing to say, okay, this is a bridge, and the nation that used to be here before Ontario or Michigan, we're going to let you own the bridge or participate in the economics or the profits of the bridge. Unless you're willing to do something like that, stop talking about it. Because, it's just a lot of hot air. So the article apparently became very popular in the New York Times. A lot of people looked at it and other people commented on it. And it led me to write this post over at the American Thinker today. And my post is very simple. I agree with this lady who wrote the article. Unless you're willing to do something about it, stop talking about it. Stop telling me that this bridge is on stolen land unless you plan to give it back or maybe compensate the people who were here before with some kind of a monetary reward. Maybe the people who were here before, the nation that had this land before, maybe they can run the bridge. Maybe you can say to them, look, this is your bridge now. You charge tolls or whatever you want to do. Well, obviously, nothing ever happens when they do these land acknowledgments. There's just a bunch of people who want to feel better about themselves, and they give these speeches and they talk about how terrible it was, but they never do anything about it. And I think a lot of people like myself and this lady who wrote the article, I think we're just tired of this. It's all a big show. Unless you want to do something about it, stop it. Stop, making a big deal out of it unless you really want to do something about it. If you want to do something about it, great. Let me know. But if you're not going to do anything other than give a speech, this is getting tiring, as the lady said. So anyway, check out my post over at the American Thinker about stolen land. The title of the post is Give It Back or Shut Up. That's exactly how I feel. Well, things are not going very well right now in let's just say the DNC, the Democrat National Committee. The moderator or the chairman of the committee, Ken Martin, is apparently having some financial problems. The party's having some financial problems. Now, again, these are not candidates. Some candidates have plenty of money, But this is the party itself. The party itself, they're not, they're a little bit short of cash. They're going to have to actually use a building as collateral to get a loan. It's, let's just say things are a little difficult in the interior of the DNC. And I think the problem that Mr. Martin is having, there's two problems I point out in the article that will be posted tomorrow. There's two problems with the DNC or with Mr. Martin, the head of the DNC. The first problem is that nobody took these people seriously, all these so-called Democrat socialists. Nobody took them seriously when they started coming in and running as Democrats. They should have been told from the very beginning, guys, you're not Democrats. You're socialist. We're the Democrats. Find the other party. Walk down the street. I think their office is down the street. But we're not them. We're Democrats. So somebody should have stood up at the very beginning and done something about this. I think it would have been ideally President Obama or President Clinton, Vice President Harris. Somebody get up and say, hey, guys, you're in the wrong party. That's not who we are. We may have some areas of agreement, but we don't think, like you do, that we should do away with the Supreme Court or do away with the Senate or whatever. We don't believe that. That's not what a Democrat is. Unfortunately, they didn't stop these people. And now these people are in the party. They're in the tent, as they say, and they're very committed to changing it. They're very committed to changing the party. And they're winning primaries. And if the Democrats win the majority, these people are going to be at the forefront of the House majority. They're going to be demanding this and this and this and that from the party. So I think that's the first problem. They didn't stop this thing at the very beginning when they had a chance to do it. The second problem is the message, and that's a little bit of what I mentioned a minute ago about wanting to do away with the Supreme Court and one of them even said, we're going to do away with the Pentagon. Well, really? You're going to do away with the Pentagon? I mean, what does that mean? I guess we're not going to have an army anymore. We're not going to have armed forces. We're going to do away with the police. We're going to do away with ICE. I mean, come on. That's not even serious stuff that these people are suggesting, but they're winning elections. They're winning primaries. Not elections, they're winning primaries. Now, it is true that they're winning in very blue districts that a Democrat's going to win anyway. So they're not really, none of these people are really competing in a very competitive election. The first test of this could very well be Michigan. Michigan has a primary on Tuesday where the establishment Democrats are supporting the lady who's running, and these more National Socialists or Socialist Democrats, whatever they're called, they're supporting another candidate. So I think that's a very important test as to where the party's going to go. The second big test would be in November, because if the National Democrat or Socialist Democrat wins the nomination, he represents the party in November, he's going to be running against Mike Rogers, the Republican, who's going to make an issue out of these differences. Again, they've been winning primaries in very blue districts. So they really haven't been forced to explain or compete or explain what they mean by all these things, because they've basically been winning. And more than likely will win in November, these very, very safe blue districts. But it's going to be different, I think, in Michigan. So Michigan could be the real test of these socialist Democrats when you have one candidate who's a socialist Democrat running against a very traditional Republican, Mike Rogers, for the Senate in Michigan. That could very well be the big test of how successful these people are. So again, Michigan, we don't know what's going to happen in the primary. I'm speculating a little bit, but I'm saying that if the candidate from the National Democrats or Socialist Democrats wins in Michigan, then that would be a big test for that movement to see how it plays on a bigger stage against a very good Republican who I'm sure is going to call them out on stuff like this. So we'll see. But clearly, for the time being, they've got an internal problem in the party. Not just a lack of money, but I think they have a message problem because they have conflicting messages that they're putting out there. And that's always a very difficult thing to do when you have conflicting messages in a political political party. Another thing that's happening with the Democrats is when you look at these polls, they're not as strong as they should be, given the fact that President Trump has, let's just say negative polls at this time of the game. So that's the other issue that they're not overcoming. They're not making the sale on their own. They're telling us that Trump is a problem, but they're not really making the sale. They haven't really persuaded you to trade Trump in for one of them. And that's also a problem that they are having. So we'll see how that turns out. Quick note on this day in history: Jackie Kennedy was born on this day in 1929. She passed away in 1994. Obviously, the First Lady of the United States. And I'm sure everybody remembers that she was with her husband, Jack Kennedy, when he was killed here in Dallas back in 1963, and the funeral and everything that happened after. I thought she was a very brave, courageous woman, and the way she handled herself in that funeral, and the way she raised two very good kids who were a great testimony to her role as a mother, as a single mother, really, after her husband was assassinated. So we remember today Jackie Kennedy, very elegant and beautiful woman who was the First Lady of the United States. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.